Hello, my beautiful biologists. Welcome to another biology with Miss Judd. One of the most important contributions made to the science of evolution by Charles Darwin is this concept of natural selection. Natural selection is the idea that individuals of a species, compete with each other for resources, and then those individuals that are better adapted to their lifestyle and to their environment have a better chance of surviving and therefore have a better chance of reproducing. With those individuals that are better at surviving and better at reproducing, the whole population will start to change and shift to look like those individuals. Natural selection forms the basis of our understanding of how species change over time. So I'm going to send it up to Miss Judd in the corner to start learning a little bit more about that.
Now, if you remember from literally just the other day, natural selection was proposed as how evolution happens. Darwin was the first one to figure this whole process out that we're going to dive into today. You're going to be handwriting your notes and you want to start now. Natural selection is the process that causes a population to change to be better fit in a given environment over multiple generations. In this environment, in this picture, we have a fish species, and there's some different colors, bright green and dark green. The dark green guys are better for this rock environment than the light green guys. These guys are going to get eaten. Now, we need to remember that evolution occurs at the population level, not in individuals. Bright green fish right here, he can't just decide the next day to be dark green in order to blend in with the rocks. Over time, that fish population is going to be dark green. Think back to your organization of life for the differences between population and individuals. There are four main forces to Darwin's principle of natural selection that we're going to dive into. The first one is overproduction. Organisms produce more offspring than the environment can support. So there's a competition for limited resources. What this means is that, for example, in this butterfly population, there are too many butterflies. There's over the number of butterflies that the environment can support. So now there's a lack of food for some. There's a lack of habitat for some. There's a lack of mates for some, meaning not all the individuals are going to survive and reproduce. This overproduction means that there's some competition between all of these butterflies. Force number 2 is heritable variation. The offspring in any generation will be slightly different from one another in their traits. So their color, their size, their shape, their height, and these features are heritable. We just talked about this in genetics. In our butterfly population, some are red, some are blue, some are dark, some are light. There's some natural variation in this population, and that's going to get passed on to their offspring. Which leads me to the third force, survival of the fittest. Some individuals survive longer and reproduce more than others. The fittest individual is an organism that has the ability to survive and reproduce in the environment. Fit doesn't mean strong. Fit means enough to survive and reproduce. Every organism's goal is to pass on their genetic information. Those that can do it the best are the most fit. So if these butterflies' habitat was a tree, a pink tree, the most fit butterfly is going to be the pink butterflies because they're going to blend in and not get eaten by the scary looking bird. Which leads us to the last force, adaptation. Over many generations, the traits of those that survive and reproduce become more common in the population. So in our butterfly example, over time, my butterflies become more pink and red. We lose some of the blue traits because in this environment, it's not beneficial to be blue. You are better when you are a pink or red color.
Now, there are 3 types of natural selection, 3 ways a population can shift. The first one, if we look at, we have a typical population. It's a typical bell curve, so most individuals are in the middle. Think most of the butterflies were kind of a pink-red color, but you have some on either extreme. So some super blue, some super red, right? Now, natural selection could say, we are going to select against one extreme. meaning that bird is going to eat those blue butterflies. It's selecting against being blue, which means over time, my population is going to shift over. This type of selection is called directional selection. So you're going to write this directional selection in your notes. Individuals at one end of the curve have a higher fitness, they are better than individuals at the other end of the curve. So being a red butterfly is better than being a blue butterfly. Over time, the favored extreme will become more common. My population is going to become more red. An example here is that long-tailed lizards look like a snake and scares predator. So the longer the tail, the more it looks like the snake. And what happens is natural selection is going to select for the longer tail and against the shorter tail, which means that over time my population is going to have longer tails. Now, in your notes, you have the typical curve, the original population. Draw the selection against extreme and the new population after selection. So draw that shift in curve. Remember that this is directional. It's moving in a direction. The second type, if we have our original population, is when you select against both extremes. And if you select against both extremes, then my population is going to kind of just be in the average, just be in the middle over time. This is called stabilizing selection. Stabilizing selection, the individuals near the center of the curve have a higher fitness than individuals at either end. So over time, the average becomes more common. An example here is that a short tail messes up a cat's balance and a long tail drags on the ground. So medium tails are best, and over time, cats are going to have more medium tails. So in your notes, make sure that you draw a selection against both extremes so that the new population after selection is higher in the middle. The last type of selection is when you have your original population, but you select against that average, against the mean, so that it looks like this. This is called disruptive selection. Disruptive selection is that individuals at the upper and lower ends of the curve have higher fitness than the individuals in the middle. The sides are better fit than the ones in the middle. This causes a split within the species. This is how new species typically occur. An example, short tails help keep predators from catching you on the ground. Long tails are good for balance in the tree. Medium tails don't do anything. So you're going to select against medium tails, and the ones who have short tails are going to survive and reproduce. The ones with the long tails are going to survive and reproduce. And over time, you have two different populations. In your notes, you're going to draw it like this. You're going to show the selection against the mean and then the new population after selection. Once you have written your notes, make sure that you practice your new knowledge with the questions at the end of the guided notes. If you need any help, just talk to regular Miss Judd. And then there's an ad puzzle on natural selection. Back to you, Miss Judd. All right, that was a lot of information, and I'm so proud of all of you and the hard work you're putting into this. Remember that if you have questions, just come to office hours, send me an email. We can walk through this and practice this all day long. You guys are great. Have a good day and make good choices.